ॐ वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्. Today our subject is Gita Today, an introduction. First point, Gita's timeless significance. How important and relevant is the message of the Bhagavad Gita today? We might as well ask the question, how important and relevant is the sun today, or the air, or the water, or all the elements of nature? In other words, the term relevance today in the context of the Gita is redundant and rather bemusing. Having said this, we should also confess that, like the importance of air, water, earth, and all the else, the message of Gita also needs to be restated again and again until we are able to live our lives according to it. The message by itself has never been irrelevant and out of place. It cannot, based as it is on the solid rock of the eternal principles underlying the human personality, life, and its ultimate purpose, the Gita is becoming even more relevant in today's context. In today's world of growing consumerism and rising violence, leading to restlessness, anxiety, and confusion in life, Gita's teachings are becoming even more significant than before. They are an eternal spring of wisdom required for developing right judgment, emotional balance, strength, and for discovering the ultimate destination of human life. Such is the appeal of Gita's message that there is hardly anyone who has known something of Hinduism and India and has not read the Gita. Beginning with its first English translation appearing some 200 years ago, the Gita continues to be translated again and again. One keeps coming across a new translation, a new interpretation, a fresh elucidation of its essential teachings published every year. All the great acharyas that India has produced, as well as numerous men and women from diverse fields of life, have commented on the Gita. One compelling truth about Gita is its pan-Hindu universality. It is accepted by all Hindu sects as authoritative. Gitas Glory, like the truth it preaches, are eternal and unending. Though well known, the Gita is rather little known among today's large populace of youth and modernized people. This reminds one of a verse in the Gita about the varieties of responses to the idea of the self. Some look upon the self as marvelous, others speak of it as wonderful, others again hear of it as a wonder, and still others, though hearing, do not understand it at all. A similar response can be observed with regard to the Gita. Some look upon the book as marvelous, a scripture of extraordinary or mysterious value. Some others speak of the book as wonderful, and some hear of it as wonderful, and still others, though hearing its teachings, do not understand its wonderful significance. No wonder, once a teacher wanting to educate a child about the Gita asked him, "Do you know Gita?" "Of course, I do," replied the child. "That is the name of my next door aunt." Aunt? He had only heard of Gita and had his own meaning of it in his mind. Our next point is an everyday appeal. What does Gita contain? It contains everything that a person wanting to live a life of meaning and fulfillment would like to know. A popular verse on the Gita compares its message to milk of the cow called the Upanishads. Milk is the best part of a cow. It has a rich supply of all essential vitamins and other nutrients that a staple food should contain. Again, milk can also be consumed directly or by converting it to other forms such as butter, curds, and buttermilk. The Gita milk too has all the ingredients necessary to make it a perfect drink for moral and spiritual nourishment, without which no healthy living is possible. The Gita milk enriches the malnourished human mind by frequently reminding it of the undying self that lies at the core of human personality. A mere idea of the eternity of the self itself brings a great solace to the despairing heart. Yes, we might face troubles in life, commit mistakes, and fall into crisis, but there is something in us which is never affected by all this. What gets affected is mind, and this mind can be trained and disciplined to overcome these influences. It can be purified and strengthened. A spiritually educated mind is always fixed on the self, and that state of steadiness is the source of unending joy, strength, and peace. Using a clear and exact language, Gita helps us to reach that state and quietly tells that reaching that state is the goal of life. This ultimate ideal of life is stated in various ways: self-realization, knowing the Brahman, becoming a yogi, getting established in God consciousness, going beyond the gunas, gaining perfect control over senses and the mind, perfecting one's devotion, and so on. In Gita, one finds an amazing wealth of expressions to denote spiritual perfection, and a mere reading about it can be a rewarding experience. Rightly did Gandhiji call it his spiritual dictionary. All spiritual concepts and sets of meaning can be found in the Gita. The Gita milk also nourishes one with the knowledge of various paths to reach that state called yogas. It discusses in depth the subtleties of human needs and frailties and how to gradually overcome them. Like a mother, it holds our hands gently but firmly and teaches us to walk the path of inner peace and fulfillment. One might stumble and slip here and there, but the Gita, the mother, is always present to help us stand up and walk the path of perfection again. Gita's teachings again cover the entire spectrum of paths to spiritual perfection that human beings follow. An interesting anecdote of Sri Ramakrishna aptly describes this all-inclusiveness of the Gita thus: a certain man had a tub. People would come to him to have their clothes dyed. The tub contained a solution of dye. Whatever color a man wanted for his cloth, he would get by dipping the cloth in the tub. One man was amazed to see this and said to the dyer, "Please give me the dye you have in your tub." The multifaceted quality of the dye, which has several colors in it, is similar to that of the Gita. This, however, has to be properly employed in coloring or recoloring our life and personality with spiritual orientation and conviction. As someone said, it is not the question of memorizing the Gita, but internalizing the truths it contains. Gita hence contains teachings for people at various stages of growth, in different stations of life, and having diverse temperaments. Gita has much philosophy to teach, but also many practical hints for solving issues that we confront in our daily lives. As Aldous Huxley says, the Bhagavad Gita occupies an intermediate position between scripture and theology, for it combines the poetical qualities of the first with the clear-cut methodicalness of the second. Gita not only accommodates but also harmonizes all paths. A bhakta has as much to learn from the Gita as a jnani or a yogi or a man of action. In Gita, one finds a grand harmony of all yogas, and a possibility for discovering new ways to reach the highest state of being. What about those who seem least interested in any path, whose minds are not clear if they should take a path or not? It is my path that men tread in all ways, says Sri Krishna. Even the pathless ones, yes, because even the pathless ones too seek happiness, peace, and security in life. There is no one who seeks unhappiness, turmoil, and insecurity. Hence, all men, even those who are not spiritual seekers in the conventional sense, are seeking God alone, though their definition and concept of God may not be as explicitly stated as a spiritually educated man would do. Gita has enough to teach even them. Gita's teachings are accessible, acceptable, and applicable to all seekers of truth, since they were delivered just before the beginning of the Mahabharata war, which is symbolic of the inner war between our good and bad tendencies. The Gita easily becomes related to the harsh realities of everyday life. The advice that Sri Krishna gives to Arjuna sounds so reasonable and applicable that one never feels the aloofness and other worldliness that is often associated with many other scriptures. As Gita deals with certain everlasting issues of life, the true purpose of life, solving moral dilemmas, taming the restless mind, learning the art of doing actions without getting attached, understanding love, compassion, charity, and so on. It occupies a central position among the scriptural traditions of the world. Our next point is the ideal of Gita. The Gita not only speaks of the goal of life's journey, but also of various stages of the journey. It teaches one how to counter problems and challenges of life, and also how to be preventive with regard to various crises and emergencies of life. This, of course, it does not do by asking us to take an insurance cover, but by asking us to develop right orientation to life and by equipping ourselves with strength and faith. The real happiness, says the Gita, is not in acquiring the objects of sense pleasure, but in training our senses. If we do not train our senses, we become slaves to them. And what can a slave expect from a master? From a ruthless master? When one develops self-control through proper training and patience, one develops a peaceful mind. This and not meaningless acquisition and reckless pampering of senses and ego is the real source of happiness. It is not just temporary peace of mind that Gita speaks of, but getting established in peace with a capital P. It teaches us how to seek it and become free from all sorrow forever. In the tranquility of mind, all sorrow is destroyed. For the intellect of him who is tranquil minded is soon established in firmness. Contrary to what popular consumerist culture advocates, Gita's way to peace and joy is to search for it within. Sri Krishna describes a man who has found this inner source thus: whose happiness is within, whose relaxation is within, whose light is within. That yogi alone, becoming Brahman, gains absolute freedom. In another place, the Gita describes three types of joy, originating from three gunas, namely sattva, rajas, and tamas. That which is like poison at first, but like nectar at the end, that happiness is declared to be sattvika, born of translucence of intellect due to self-realization. That which arises from the contact of objects of senses, at first like nectar, but at the end like poison, that happiness is declared to be rajasika. The happiness which begins and results in self-delusion arising from sleep, indolence, and miscomprehension that is declared to be Tamasika. In his evolutionary march towards greater wisdom and maturity, man learns and progresses from Tamasika to Rajasika happiness and to Sattvika happiness and even beyond. This happiness is not inviting at the beginning but seeking, which it finally leads one to a joy which is free from all remorse, guilt, and anxiety. It is the pure joy of our being. In Gita is found the message not only of personal development but a plan for collective good and development. Sri Krishna cautions all men, especially leaders and elders, to be careful in whatever they do. Freedom entails responsibility. It is not mere freedom to act, but the freedom to be that is vital and necessary for growth and true well-being. Says Gita, whatever the superior person does, that is followed by others. What he demonstrates by action, that people follow. Through its ideal of following one's sadharma, that is duty based on one's station in life, and svabhava, that is temperament or sum total of inclinations a person has. The Gita has provided an irrefutable solution for harmonizing social and individual aspirations. In one of the verses in praise of Gita that appears in an auxiliary work, Sri Krishna says, Gita is my heart. The word Gita itself means a song, and when it comes from the heart of God, it should be taken to mean the best advice Sri Krishna, the Godhead personified, has to give to anyone. Of course, whatever God gives is best and good for others, but we should not forget that when a man is joyful, he bursts into a humming melody and a song emerges from his heart. It may be the song that he has heard and admired earlier, or a song which he composes impromptu. Singing a song is thus a spontaneous outburst of a joyful heart. In the same way, Gita, Sri Krishna's outpouring in the form of his song, the song of God, is born of joyfulness and goodwill, and it comes from God's heart. In other words, the Gita is born of his deep concern and love for humanity. Finally, Swami Premananda, a direct disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, said to a novice once, "My boy, say I am reading the Gita. Never say I have read the Gita. One can never finish reading the Gita. It is a statutory warning for all complacent students of the Gita and a call for being devoted to its study with humbleness and openness. What comes in the following pages is an attempt to explore and state the message in a contemporary perspective. The Vedanta Kesari brought out a spotlight issue on Bhagavad Gita in 1983. It examined the continued relevance of the Gita from various angles. Obviously, being the fountainhead of spiritual and cultural legacy of entire mankind, Gita lends itself to ever newer perspectives. With changed socio-cultural context and the challenges they have thrown up, a keen need was felt to re-examine the message of the Gita for newer and contemporary meanings and applications. Hence, after 25 years, this year's spotlight issue focuses on the Gita again. It is not just an attempt to paraphrase the teachings of the Gita, but to examine them from new perspectives. After all, as in Varaha Purana, Sri Krishna says, standing on the wisdom of the Gita, I maintain the worlds. We all need the wisdom of the Gita for living fuller lives in this world. Om Santi 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 Hari Om Tat Sat.